Hey guys, Blue811 here, and we're back with the post mini expansion released, and one of the new decks that's popped up as a result of one of the changes that actually came with the mini expansion as part of the balance patch, which is the Skillfane. It's a Skillfane card deck that pops amulets and shit. So nothing too new or revolutionary. This kind of, how do you say it, Amulet Haven deck in Unlimited relies upon a combination of ward and 1 mana value amulets, as well as some of the value 2 mana amulets like Noble Fangs and Holy Sentinel, which spawn wards in combination with Anvil's effect, which has some synergies with ward followers in this deck, but most importantly has major synergies with Selena, Sugar Kiss Assassin, and Skillfane. So if you haven't already seen the change for Skillfane used to be a vanilla body, 7 mana 4/4, and perfect, destroy all allied amulets, but with one of the Nintendo Switch balance changes that was implemented at the same time as the mini expansion release, Skillfane has gained a new ability in gaining cost reduction whenever you play an amulet card onto board. So on average, if you draw into Skillfane on turn 1 or turn 2, you will be able to play the card by turn 4 with 3 amulets played, and from there it's a matter of constantly popping amulet bods between Selena and Skillfane in combination with strong amulet effects such as Anvil Judgment's Cannon, Temple of Heresy, Noble Fangs, Holy Sentinel. You have access to a very stable draw engine in Sacred Plea, Golden Bell, and Globe with the Stairways. Bit of supplementary amulet damage in Sneak Attack. You also have access to storm damage on some of your larger bodies by way of Feather Rush in combination with either the bodies that are spawned from Anvil, Skillfane, but most commonly with the Casitas or the Prince of Darkness. And then Vengeful Sniper is also there as a great card that simultaneously takes advantage of the payoff from being able to break so many amulets, as well as a strong mid-game card that helps take back the tempo and takes back the board as a 3-for-1 trade with ward, which helps secure games against faster, more aggressive decks. So Vengeful Sniper is just a star play of this deck along with Selena and Skillfane, and there are so many synergies in this deck that it would take me forever to go through the entire list. So without further ado, I'm just going to play the deck. So we're off to a great start with Skillfane in hand on turn 1, which is exactly what we want, and a long countdown amulet, which is also what you want, because what we're planning to do is we're going to set up the Temple of Heresies into Sacred Plea, Temple of Heresy next turn, into hopefully a turn for Skillfane. Having said that, what I should have done there was play the Sacred Plea on turn 1, because with the amount of amulets that I have in hand from the deck, I will most likely only be able to play 1 amulet on board on turn 3. So having that turn 1 counter 3 amulet is actually fairly important for the deck in some circumstance. It's rare, but it does happen. Because the logic here is that by the time you reach turn 4, you pop one of the amulets that was on board the previous turns, thereby clearing out a board space for either your Skillfane or your Selena on turn 4 with 4 amulets on board for maximum value. And it does appear my opponent is playing Ward Haven in ranked, so I'm just going to go ahead and pop the board with Skillfane there. And that should clear out the entire board and give me back a little bit of value. So I think I'll go for the more aggressive play. See how it turns out for me. That's the deck. Pop powerful amulets and play down stupidly large boards on turn 4. There's a few more nuances to the deck that I've yet to cover, so as I said before, the most important thing obviously is that turn 1 draw amulet so that you don't clog up your board for the turn 4 Selena or Skillfane. The deck also suffers if you don't draw into the Selena on by turn 4, or if you're unable to draw into a Skillfane early enough to be able to start discounting it by playing amulets onto the board. So there's a bit of an issue in that regard, but Having said that, it is still a very stable, fairly consistent deck, and because of that stability, it is able to hold its own in the unlimited meta of Shadowverse. So, exactly what I was talking about before, you want to be able to put that Globe of the Stairways on turn 1 as a draw amulet into more amulets on turn 2, turn 3, which with longer countdowns, so that we can proc Selena's maximum effect on turn 4. Even better, we actually managed to draw to Skillfane early, so that's going to be a great boon to our game plan, because after we pop the initial set of amulets, we will have a second set of amulets, and that's very interesting. Alright, so here I'm going to play a 2-mana amulet, and next turn I want to be putting down 3 1-mana amulets. So the reason for that is, if I play 2 1-mana amulets here, I lose out a little bit of value. So if he has another Kaleidoscope, game plan here is, now that I have too many amulet activators in my hand, I have to try and play smart in when and which activators I use to block all the followers on my board. Most likely I still will. Gonna have a fairly sizable board for a turn 4. The only reason I popped the Skillfane there instead of saving it for another turn was because I have an extra Selena in hand in order to secure a amulet board that I play on turn 5 with setup for a turn 6 power play or a turn 6 power spike. But obviously he doesn't feel like he can deal with my board at that specific point in the game. So these turn 4 boards are just straight up game winning, and these high rolls are ridiculous. I do have to note that I have played this deck extensively. While the deck can high roll this hard into a turn 4 power spike with many huge bodies on board, there's also situations where you don't run into any of your amulet activators, in which case when you encounter that low roll, obviously your game plan is going to go awry and you're going to have a few problems closing out the game or catching up to the opponent that may generate a larger board than you, may generate huger threats than you. But it still is a very solid game. Many woods in the deck, and damn, I am lucky. So definitely I want to be playing that turn 1 globe into more amulets by turn 4, turn 5. So the reason I was is then by turn 4, which is the turn I'll be able to play Skillfane, I'll have enough board spots to put more amulets onto board. And that's a bit of a strange one there, but we'll roll with the punches. So definitely want to get that built-in heresy onto board as early as possible. And then we have the perfect setup for a turn 4 Skillfane. That is an interesting Apollo play there. So, yeah, so that's going to be a powerful Vengeful Sniper on turn 5. So next turn I'm going to get 1 draw from the globe, and then I'm going to be able to pop the Sacred Plea with the Selena, evolve the Selena, or perhaps evolve another follower. So very interesting. This dragon guy looks like he's playing some sort of janky control deck. Can't actually say what the hell he's playing because I honestly have no point clue, man. Like, what the hell are you smoking, man? Definitely want to clear the board a little. So he is in a very difficult position. There's some. So judging from the cards he played as well as the fact he has an Apollo deck, he's probably playing the new 3-mana Dragon Calf spell that gives a 10 play point follower Storm, which is used in combination with Phoenix, Roost, and Dagon to secure game. I don't actually need that much card draw, and then 1. Skillfane.
弱者の叫びに鉄火で報いる。
止めてみせます。耐えた祈りは諦めずに。
泣きなさい。
And I should be able to secure the game with Vengeful Sniper next turn.
くだらない獣ね。
Yeah, very powerful deck that is just able to win the game very quickly. So this particular video was a lot quicker than I thought it would be. Like, damn, this deck is bonkers, man. For the hypothetical situation in which you don't draw into Skillfane early enough and you don't draw into Selena Sugar Kiss Assassin, you're kind of stuck with a bunch of one amulets and high amulet counters on board. You do have issues when you draw into your Temple of Heresies into Anvil and maybe a early Vengeful Sniper that doesn't have a great payoff. Morier is just there as a kind of filler card that also helps to control the board early. Its draw cycle effect does help mitigate the randomness of drawing into Skillfane or Selena. Holy Sentinel is a great anti-board flood 2-mana amulet, especially with the amount of boards out there that tend to flood the board with amulets and or early followers. The draw amulets, Glaive with the Stairway, Sacred Plea, Golden Bell do help to round out the consistency of the deck, especially if you manage to draw into one of these 3 draw amulets on turn 1, which allows you to cycle through your deck without compromising your turn 4 power play from Skillfane or Selena onto a board full of amulets. But having said that, the low rolls do happen. Outside of the low rolls though, this deck is very consistent for ladder. There's a few variations of the builds going around. Some people try dropping Feather Rush for other value options. I've seen some builds run Heretic Priest and more amulet control tools, but I personally like this specific build that I've been using. I haven't felt the need to change out any of the slots or any of the cards that I've used in this deck. Skillfane or Selena onto any of these early board power plays is just such a huge turnaround, especially even if you say you get an average roll with having to use the 2-mana amulets, Noble Fangs, Holy Sentinel, into a Selena on turn 4, you're still generating a board full of very powerful bodies and very obnoxious bodies that are difficult for most opponents to deal with on turn 4, turn 5, which is why this deck is pretty much one of the greatest decks out there. Kaleidoscope from Spellbeast Rune does mitigate the speed of the deck somewhat, but not enough to stop it from being a powerful deck. Atomy does function similarly to this build of Amulet Haven. In case you don't already know, the current versions of Atomy utilize Princess Knight to toot out the Atomy for pseudo 6 copies of Amulet Poppies. And then the amulets that Atomy does have access to has the Coffin of the Unknown Soul, which allows them to reanimate a huge follower on turn 4, turn 3, turn 5, depending. So Atomy still does have higher power specs than this deck, but I like this deck better because I like Haven's aesthetic a lot more than Shadowcraft's, to be quite honest. So still going to be seeing a lot of Atomy around in the meta, but this Havencraft option is an option out there for any of you guys that already have the cards to this deck or just want to try something new. I recommend you give it a go. And thanks for watching. My name's Blue, and I'll catch you next time. Peace out.